Hi, I'm Ashley with Campbell. Thanks for investing your time to help your community be a great place to live. Before you watch the video, make sure to click the subscribe button so that we can help you make educated decisions as a board member.
Before we get started into this, it's interesting. If someone doesn't own an electric vehicle, they may not actually even notice all the electric vehicles driving around. From the outside, they really don't look that much different. So here's a good example of that. There's 6 different EVs on here from 6 different companies. And other than the Tesla, it's not really clear to most people that these are all EVs. But I can tell you that the market for EVs is absolutely growing, as is the need for charging stations at condominium complexes. You might just not notice it yet. That's why we had over 650 people registered for this webinar today, all to learn more about it. So, hi everyone, thanks again for joining us today to learn more about electric vehicle charging in condominiums in Florida. This is specifically about condos in Florida and putting in EV charging stations. My name is Dan Tiernan. I'm the Chief Operating Officer for Campbell and one of the 5 owners of the company. I'm joined today by Pere Francino, the CEO and founder of CityVitae. They provide EV charging stations and services for condos, apartments, and other businesses, and they are based right locally here in Miami. So with that, you all asked a lot of great questions in your registration process. So what we did is we built our agenda around your questions. So hopefully all the questions that you had during the course of this we'll get to. So first we're going to start off, and Pere's going to tell us a little bit about how the EV market is growing, where it is today, where it's going to be growing over the next several years, and also the EV charging market, what that looks like. Second, talk a little bit about how long it takes for electric vehicles to charge, and then how that might, because that has a big impact on what kind of systems you put in and how you organize. The third is to talk about the differences and considerations, whether or not you're doing individual parking stations versus common parking, shared charging stations. So we'll talk a little bit about those differences. And then the fourth, we'll talk about the cost of installation. Pere's going to go through a bunch of examples of different installations they've done and give you a feel for what those costs were. And then also neither one of us are attorneys, but we're going to give you a brief, super simple legal understanding of what some key things you need to know in condos as it relates to EV charging. And then Pere's going to kind of wrap it all up and give you some ideas on what you need to do from a planning standpoint and address some other key questions. And then hopefully at the end, we'll have some time for some Q&A. So with that, the market size. Pere, what can you tell us about the growth of electric vehicle market and EV charging?
Hi, everyone. Thank you very much, Dan and Ashley, for organizing that, and counting again with CityVitae for this great webinar. So the market is dominated by 2 elements. So the first one is growth. And as we can see here, this growth is it can be seen from the number of cars that are being sold. So on the left is the percentage of cars sold. So we, in this country, we buy 1 million cars per month. And out of those, about 7% today are electric, right? So that's going to grow up to 33% in 2030. So that means that out of 100 cars sold in 2030, 30 are going to be electric, whereas today it's 7. So the growth again is spectacular. So in terms of looking at the charging stations in the public space, again, we find this great growth is approaching 50,000 stations in the public space, and we need to grow up to 1.3 million before 2030. So every statistic, every parameter you look at, it's growth. And for instance, this little one saying that we have registered 1 EV every minute during the whole year 2022, right? So the second thing is, well, yeah, it's growth, but take a minute. I mean, it's not going to be like, don't panic, right? The growth is gradual. So everybody says, but Pere, what's going to happen? We need to do this, we need to do that. I find condos that they are preparing installations of $350,000 to put chargers in every single parking space of their condo for 400 parking spaces. Well, no, it doesn't make sense. We have 7% adoption today, and this is going to grow. But as we have seen, this growth is gradual. So again, the idea of graduality here, if we see the blue line, that's the EV share with sales and the number of registrations. Something we mustn't forget is that even if we go very fast at 5% adoption, well, this country has 250 million cars in total. So before those 250 million are being replaced, it's going to take time. So in summary, yes, it's growing very fast, but let's not panic, because we need to put the solution that is right for every moment of time. Dan.
Right. So on to the next key question. A lot of people ask questions about, help us understand how long it takes to charge an electric vehicle.
Right, and this is I ask all participants a few minutes of concentration, because it's not too complex, but we need to get a little bit into some technicalities. All right, and don't believe anyone who tells you that charging a car takes 1 hour or 2 hours or 3 hours, because it depends on 3 elements. So let's start with element number 3. How long it takes to fill your swimming pool? Well, it depends, right? It depends on what is the flow of water, but it also depends on the size of the swimming pool. So here is the same. One key element is, what is the size of the battery? And not every car has the same battery size. Today, pretty much the standard is between 60 to 80 kilowatt, right? So a very easy figure that we will see in a minute, not now, bear with me a second, is that if we have a swimming pool or a battery of 60 kilowatt, and we are injecting 20 kilowatt per hour, well, if that battery is empty, it will take 3 hours to fill, right? So that's going to happen with the charging stations. We need to know what is the battery size and what is the flow of energy in the charger, right? And there is another influence, if we can go to the next one, which is what type of energy we are filling into the car. So once we've said that if the battery is 60 and we are injecting 20, then the other element is every car, and that a lot of people get confused with that, with the level 1, level 2, or level 3. But if you get a level 2 charger, means that the charger is actually going through an onboard converter into the car, rather than a level 3 that goes directly into the battery. What's the difference? Well, the difference is not necessarily power, it's not only power. The difference is that when we go on a level 2 charger, it is the onboard converter who is deciding what's the speed of charge. We cannot go faster than what the onboard converter is fixing. Whereas when we go with a level 3, it's a direct communication with the battery, and then I can inject as much power as I want. The difference is, if we go to the next one, is that we will see that a level 3 charger, I am converting the energy, so it is going to be much more expensive, approximately between 6 to 8 times more expensive than level 3 charger, because I am converting the energy from level 2, from AC to DC. The advantage is that I have nobody in between the charger and the battery. There is no onboard conversion. So if I inject 100, 200, 300 kilowatts to the battery will take it because there is nobody intermediary, right? Now for the level 2, it's another story. I could inject as much as I want, but if the onboard converter has a limitation of 32 amps or 80 amps, then I cannot go faster than that on a voltage that is corresponding to the level 2. Obviously, the price is also different. As you see, an average price today for a level 2 is about $3,000. And then we have the level 1, which again is not directly related to power. Level 1 is the charger that you install in your own house that has no communication capacity with the network or with any external world. It's just you, your car, and your house. So in a summary, we can take, if we go to the next one, Dan, we can take a battery of 60 kilowatt as an example, as a reference. If you charge with a level 3 on the right, with a 480 volt service that's required for level 3s, it fills with 2 hours. Whereas with a level 2, it takes between 6 to 8 hours, and a level 1, it starts between 15 to 20 hours. That would be the summary of how long it takes, knowing that in our conversation, what it was, the main parameters are the size of the battery or the size of the swimming pool. What is the flow of water in your swimming pool? That would be the number of amps. And what is the voltage that you are applying? For a level 3, you need 480. For a level 2, you need 230. And for a level 1, 110 is sufficient, right?
Great. So, Pere, Ashley, at the beginning, we had this poll regarding EV charging stations. So, Ashley, can you let us know what were the results of that?
All right, so let me end it. Let's see here. And I can actually share the results. So you should be able to see them. But basically, we had only 7% say yes, we currently have one. 28% said no, but we plan on adding one this year. And 65% said no, but we plan on adding one in 2 years.
Okay, great. So it's kind of funny. It just turned out that the market share of new sales is like the percentage of condos that actually have it, which is just a weird similarity to have nothing to do with each other. 7% though, that I'm surprised, honestly, that it's not more. We've actually had a few condos that have had them in there for 3 or 4 years and are looking to put new systems in place. So, you know, or we've seen it. We've seen some instances where they put in personal charging stations and they're looking now to put common area charging stations in. So,
right.
Anyway, a lot of changes.
But it's coming. But it's also, Dan, it's also interesting because it confirms that we still have a little bit of time. So we need to move. We need to put a solution in place. But it's not like kind of a next year we are going to have everybody driving electric. That is not going to happen, right? Exactly. There is no way back. But this also confirms that the trend is steady, but not that huge, right?
Right. You know, a lot of people have asked the question, are we going to send these slides out afterwards? And the answer is absolutely yes. So you don't need to furiously be taking down notes because there's a lot of good information in here. So you can sit back and relax and not have to worry about it. We'll send all these to you. Everyone that's registered, we'll send those to you. And someone also asked, Pere, they asked about the cost numbers that you put in here. Were those monthly, yearly, or one-time charges?
Right. So that's a very nice question. This is the price of the charger. This is upfront one shot, right? So one parking space charger level 2 average price market today is about $3,000. We have solutions for 2,700 and we have solutions for 3,400, but it cannot be outside this level. If it's outside this level for a level 2, between 40 to 60 amps, it means that something is wrong, right? What could be wrong? Well, there's people who are offering power sharing, right? So they tell you that they have 40 amps, but in reality, when the two cars are together in the same parking spot, it's dividing the power in 20 plus 20. That's not the solution that normally you want to implement, or at least you have to be aware that this is a solution that could make it a little bit cheaper. But otherwise, on average, that's the price of one parking space charger, $3,000. Then the $26,000 is also for one parking space on a level 3, right?
And then somebody had a question about the poll. They said, hey, we've got some people, we have one that's in a unit owner's personal space, but they don't have one in the common area. And that's exactly what the poll was trying to represent there, was that we asked specifically, do you have any common area charging stations? We weren't asking about people having individual ones. Those are pretty common. We were trying to get a feel though for who had common area ones, shared ones. So that was really the whole point of the poll. So,
right.
And then I don't think we'll cover this later, but someone asked, what fire suppression is necessary of charging a garage under the condo?
There's
And,
no,
yeah.
sorry.
Go
Yeah.
ahead. Go ahead.
But there's no specific fire suppression that we need to put in place due to an EV charger today. And to go even in more detail, there is no impact on the insurance policy. There shouldn't be any impact on the insurance policy that is currently applicable to the garage. Never we have come up with a situation where the insurance is asking a premium to install an EV charger in the parking space.
Right, and the likelihood of having an explosion from a gas car is probably dramatically far greater than an explosion from an electric vehicle.
Right, but yeah, I mean, the demonstration of that is that the insurance, they are not charging a premium, right? So
right.
at the moment, like when we speak with data, the data shows that the insurance companies do not charge a premium for EV charging stations.
Yep, great. So let's move on here. So Pere, tell us about this kind of, do EV owners pay to charge their cars, and then who gets paid, the EV charging station company or the condo? How does that typically work?
Okay, every company is different, right? Every operator is a little bit different. I was just putting down the phone with a client in Miami who said, wow, we're going to go with you guys. And we are going to purchase the charging station. And I said, but is there anybody else proposing a vending machine model? And they said, yeah, but they asked us 10 years contract, right? Okay, so this is just to show, to exemplify that there are two basic business models, and a lot of particular examples or particular cases from those two main business models. And let me start with the one in the right-hand side, which is the more direct, the one that we are more used to, right? So we have a driver that pays to the charger, and it is the condo, the complex, the host that receives that money. Why? Because the host is buying the charger. So when you become the owner of the charger, you become also the owner of the charging fees, right? And what is important also is that you decide the charging fee. The only thing is that you are operating that charger under our platform or another platform from somebody else. Again, you buy the charger and you operate that charger. You get all the characteristics, all the features of the technology of the CityVitae platform or any other platform. You pay a network fee, which market price today is about $20 per month per parking space. And then with that, you get the 24/7 monitoring. Our back office is monitoring the voltage, the amperage, the temperature 24/7. But you are the one deciding what is the charging rate, and you are the one receiving the net revenue from that charger. Now, it could be that you say, no, I prefer to reduce the upfront cost. I don't want to buy the charger. And then we move to the left-hand side model, which I call the vending machine, because we are all used to see those vending machines for sodas that are in some condos. And what happens there is that the machine doesn't belong to you. The machine belongs to us, right? And we keep the revenue of that charger. You pay also an average $20 per month per parking space to have that amenity with that charger that you do not own. We are the owners. Those are the two basic elements. And I would say that you could modify a lot from that, depends on what is your appetite for keeping the revenue. Obviously, and that is super important, we have a lot of people who want to go in the model on the left. There needs to be some conditions to be on the model on the left. And one of the conditions is the capacity of growth. So we have our modeling tools, and our modeling tools tell us how grow you will do, how big is going to be the growth in your condo in the next coming years, what chargers you have around you, whether there is seasonality or not. So I have a condo in Pompano who is insisting that they want us to invest, but we know that the seasonality is huge. So during 6 months of the year, they have no drivers almost, right? So it's very difficult that we can take an investment into a condo that doesn't have at least around 8 to 10 cars and no more than 20% seasonality in the month of June to September. Then 2 tips. The first one, try to own the installation. This is our personal, our direct, I would say even my personal advice. I have seen more and more people who say, I'm gonna pay everything, right? So imagine that every contract comes to an end. So you don't want to have the vendor taking away the conduits, the breaker panel, and the junction boxes and the wires when the contract is finalizing. So you really make your best, even if sometimes you have to reduce the upfront cost, make your best to own the installation so that you can plug and play another operator when you want to finish the contract with the existing one. That will give you a lot of freedom. And another tip is try to reduce the life of the contract to no more than 5 years, right? More and more I am seeing people who come to us saying, listen, I have someone who is offering 8 or 10 years contract, they pay everything, but we don't want to do that because 8 or 10 years is too long. So those are the 2 tips. Apart from that, it really depends on the board. Every board is different to go from model left or model right. Dan?
Move to the next slide here. Okay, so there's other option that a lot of people are considering, as some people asked this in the comments. You know, does it make better? What's the difference between kind of individual parking stations versus guest or common area parking stations that are shared?
Right. So since you are going to keep the slides, I'm not going to go one by one on all the points. We are falling a little behind on time, but there's a key point here. The key point is, yes, when you go individual parking space, you get some freedom, right? But there is a cost. And when you go to the common area, you lose some freedom, but you gain some efficiency. So those are the 2 parameters. There are condos that say, I don't want to sacrifice the freedom and I want to install in every single parking space, all right? Then take this order of magnitude. If you have about 300 parking spaces, you're going to pay about $300,000 to $400,000 on the common area conduit, junction boxes, transformers, and wiring. Who's going to pay for that? When the adoption today is less than 7%. That's the big problem of individual parking. So I always tell my clients, it's not that individual parking space is not good, it's that it's not the right moment. We will discuss about individual parking space when we have a parking space, a small community of 20 or 30 drivers. That makes sense. And the parking space has a geometry that is friendly. That means that they have the electrical room in the center, or they don't have several levels of parking space. So small community, friendly parking, okay, let's go for individual parking space. Otherwise, which is the majority of the cases, is not that situation, then it's better to do common. And don't forget, whatever we do in the common area, you are not throwing it away. Once you reach the 40% or 50% adoption, we will be able to reuse those level 2 and level 3 charging stations, right? But today, the condos that we see that make faster progress is the condos that get as fast as possible into that reasoning of saying common area parking space is much more efficient, and until we have a 20 or 30% adoption. Dan?
Okay. All right, so you've done a great job and you pulled together a few different examples here at different condominiums and different places where you've implemented. Can you take us through these so we can understand a lot of the different options and costs? I think this will help a lot of people understand this better.
Sure. Let's go for the first one. And again, I mean, I'm taking I'm taking a little bit of risk of putting numbers into particular situations because every installation is different. But what we can see here is in Miami, in 32nd Street, 7th Avenue, we have a level 3 station. Some people say level 3 in condos, that's very big, that's not for me. Yes, it is. You buy a level 3 station not only when you want a fast charge, but when you want to reduce the number of parking spaces required to charge. In other words, when you pay the $25,000 or $26,000 of this station, you are buying space. In some condos, they call us when they have 10, 15, 20 parking spaces of level 2s. And don't forget, this machine turns around 5 times faster. So the same job I'm doing with the machine on the top, the big machine, I'm doing it with a very small one on the bottom. That is a white level 2, right? So that installation is about $15,000 for one level 2 and one level 3. The direct correlation is with the distance. In this case, it's about 300 feet of conduit. Next one, Dan. Yeah, on the next one, we have an outdoors installation that is in Boca. That's much cheaper because it's the same level. We don't have asphalt, we don't have concrete, it's just 100 feet of conduit, and we have 2 stations. It's below $11,000, including permits and engineering.
And then how many cars can typically can a 2-state like this service?
Right. So today we have cases that with 2 charging stations level 2, we manage about 12 to 15 cars, right? Why? Because not everybody charges at the same time. That's a great question. A lot of people ask us, how can you handle 15 cars with just 2 charging stations? Well, it's because people charge everywhere, right? So today you don't get more than 2-3 hours per day of usage of those stations because people charge in the shopping center, people charge every time they go out. So it's just a complementary. And we handle very smoothly communities of 15, 16 drivers with only 2 or 3 charging stations like that one.
Yeah, and like Pere is saying, it varies wildly. I mean, you know, he and I both own electric vehicles. I own a Tesla Model 3, and I tend to charge it at night, you know, starting at 9 o'clock when the electricity price goes down, and I do it maybe twice a week, and that covers, you know, quite a bit of distance. It allows me to drive over 1,000 miles a month easily. So,
right.
But again, everyone's different.
Right. So if we go to the next one, that is a clinic in Brandon, not far from Tampa, and we have about 12,000. It's very similar to the previous one. We don't have asphalt. Sorry, here it's 4 charging stations, but because of the distance is lower, is shorter, then we have more. We have a less investment on the station. And if we go to the next one, I think the next one is in Sunrise. Yeah, correct. This is Sunrise. It's just 2 individual charging stations, and that's below $7,000. That's a very short distance, only dirt. There is no concrete. No. It's a very simple installation. Dan?
Great. Okay, and then from a legal standpoint, a couple of things that you should know. I'm not going to read all this stuff, but I'll send this slide to you. Most important things you need to understand here is that, you know, the condominiums, if you want to have a charging station, they can't prohibit it, but the condo can't, but they need to kind of enable it, but they can establish the standards, and they can require the owners to pay for it, and then require owners to pay for everything related to it. So you have the right to have it, but you have to help fund it potentially. So the bottom line is that condos need to be prepared to enable it. But in the end, it's kind of up to the board to make it easier or make it hard to do, to be honest with you. Like what we've said is that I've seen a few condos move pretty quick when there were board members that kind of pushed it along because, you know, they thought this was a great idea. And it was, you know, and then others that don't ever envision having an EV potentially might be a little slower on that. So, but you absolutely have the right to do it. And then also it does not require a material change. They made sure to put that in the law, I forget, last year or two, that, you know, you don't need a material change to be able to put an EV charging station in condos. So Pere, what should condos do to kind of get started on their old EV charging plans if they haven't started yet?
Okay, so a couple of kind of concluding slides. So we know, we have a lot of experience, and we know that sometimes it takes months to take this decision and to take this step. There are three things that facilitate, that will make it easier for you to have the board aligned and to have everybody on the same page. So the first one is think big, but don't panic. You don't want to make a big installation today, right? And also, you don't need to do an installation that is going to last for 20 years. Some people say, yeah, but technology is changing. Well, yeah, I mean, the way electrons are moved from point A to point B is not going to change, right? We have electrical motors. We have had electric motors in trains, in many devices for a long, long time. So technology is not going to break through like that. The biggest change in technology is the density of the battery, but not in the way that we move electrons from point A to point B. So try to think 2 or 3 years ahead, not like 7 or 10 years ahead, because then it's going to be very hard to align everybody on the same page. Another thing is, well, one of the clear differentiating factors that we try to transmit from CityVitae, probably from some others, but definitely from us, is that we like to talk and think system. We don't want to be seen as selling chargers, because the charging station is the least important element of the part, even if it sounds paradoxal, right? But it is. I mean, the most important factor to get everybody together is to think system and to know what we need and what the board needs and what the board wants for the residents. The chargers are the same pretty much everywhere, right? They are a little bit more cheaper, a little bit more expensive, but to be honest, there's not that big difference between one charger and the other one. So think system. And then, yeah, there are ways to think of the present but plan for the future. For instance, when we do an installation, we recommend always to do a wider conduit, a bigger conduit. When we install 2 stations, we put a conduit that is going to be good for 6 or 7 charging stations, right? Even in some cases, we even pull the wires. It has happened in some cases that the guys tell me, yeah, we know it's going to happen, so we don't want to buy 2 stations, we buy 1, but pull the wires so that you just need to connect, and it's cheaper when you come back. And then it happens. We go back there in 6 months and we connect the second station. So take action for the short term, but also think of the medium term or long term, right? And then if you ask me, what are the main questions that people are asking me on the everyday life, Dan, if you want to move to the next one, this is, I think, a good summary of what people are. Sometimes they are concentrating on things that technology can fix almost everything. So there's some people who say, I just want valet to operate the chargers. Well, we have a solution. We have a tap card, and the tap card is the only one interaction between the valet and the charging station. The valet doesn't need to touch the cell phone from the driver, right? Well, one very common question is, what happens when the driver stays in the parking space forever? Well, we have also solutions for that. We could charge per minute. We could make an occupancy fee. We have solutions. Well, I don't want my property manager to have more work. They already have a lot of work to do. Well, in the way we work, the property manager receives information from us, but they are not really an active part if they don't want. We receive $20 per month per charger to manage the whole fleet of chargers, and they don't have any other operational responsibility in the everyday life, right? We can also send notifications to the driver when the battery is full. We have some people who say, I want this resident to pay, but not the other. And we have seen an example of a clinic. In the case of the clinic, the doctors are not paying, but the clients are paying, right? So, I mean, think about that. Technology can fix whatever question you have, right? I always say to my clients, forget about technology, forget about those questions. Technology can do everything you need. Just try to align the board to understand when is the right moment, what is the right charger, and where do you want to install it. All the rest will be answered by technology, right? And then, like, the magic formula, if we go to the, could you tell me what is it that we can do in order to make it happen as efficiently and as fast as possible? And I like to think, and some of you might not agree, right? But I like to think of EV drivers almost like heroes. Heroes because they have taken a risk, right? And in fact, they have kind of jumped into an empty space where there are a lot of unknowns, but they have decided to take that step. And what's going to happen is that their life is going to make our life easier when we decide to buy our electric car, right? So think of them as the minority population, but think of them also as the ones who have taken some risk. And because that risk, the market is moving on and is growing and is answering a lot of questions, right? So the three key points that you need to discuss with your board is, number one, do you want to charge or do you want to make it for free? Almost everybody says, wow, obviously we want to charge. Well, think there's people who are giving electricity for free, right? That makes a difference in the business model. The second is, do you want to buy the charger and keep the revenue, or do you prefer to give the charger away and the revenue with it? And that will also dictate the business model, right? And then ask how many electric vehicles you have today. Try to find out as soon as possible in the process. And also bear in mind the seasonality, because you could have a totally different infrastructure if you have a lot of seasonality or you have a low seasonality. We are thinking of systems that are totally different, right? And as we said, answering the question from Dan, with about 2-3 parking spaces, you are good to go with for 15 cars approximately. So yeah, both communities, the EV drivers and the non-EV drivers, the fastest implementation is when both understand each other. Even if this is not a matter of numbers only, right? It's a matter of understanding each of the two communities, understanding each other. Dan?
Great. So I think that covers everything that we wanted to get through today. I know there's a bunch of questions in here still. Why don't we try to answer some of those? We have about 6 minutes still, and I think Ashley's put up a poll as well. So I had somebody ask an interesting question. He said, what is the dollar per dollar charge, the difference between level 3 charging compared to, like, if you have a gas engine? And I guess I just started looking down at, I just kind of wrote it down on my I'll tell you just that me personally, I have a Tesla Model 3 and I charge it. I drive it about $1,000 a month, and it costs me about $35 a month in electricity for that. And so if I were to have a regular car and I drove 1,000 miles and got 25 miles to the gallon, that would be like 40 gallons of gas, which at $3 would be $120. So that's, that's just an example. There's a million examples, right? If you have a Prius, it's different. It all depends. And I'm in the lowest cost situation because I just have a single private charger at my home, which is really simple. and it just goes directly, it just, whatever FPL charged me is what it costs. So hopefully that answers that as an example. It's a lot cheaper as a bottom line, especially when gas is over $1 a gallon or even 75 cents a gallon.
Right.
It's crazy effective. Someone also asked, he said, is there any outside funding available for installation of EV charging stations? And then I think maybe other people ask things about grants.
Right.
Have you heard anything more about that at all recently, Pere? Or
Certainly. So number one, in the state of Florida, there are tax credits. There are no subsidies. There are no refunds yet. We don't expect to see any kind of direct subsidy anytime soon. And the second part of the answer is there is a tax credit, and also there is some kind of help, but every kind of direct help passes through the fact of making that charging station available to public, accessible to public. And if you remember the example I was mentioning right before the meeting, that there was a condo in Miami who said they were being proposed 8 years. The company was asking also to have that charger accessible to public, because then they get access to additional subsidies. So basically in condos it's got to be a tax credit, not direct subsidy. And if you want to access any kind of any kind of state help, it's got to be public access. And yeah, unfortunately or fortunately, but no condo today has the will to give public access to their charging stations. Otherwise, there's nothing yet on the private residences.
okay. And then someone else Ellen asked, if 90% of owners will not have an electric car, is it fair to have the entire community pay the installation fee and ongoing utilities for one owner that has an electric car? So I will tell you, there's a broad view of opinions on this. I've seen on one hand, people will say absolutely right. And that way you can charge that owner 100% of the cost of the installation, and you can charge them 100% of the cost of the usage that they have by metering it. Even if you don't have a formal meter, you can put a one-off meter in there and figure out what it is. And you can even charge more than that because of the administration related to it. So you have some people that take that attitude, and then you might have others on the complete opposite side that said, hey, 90% of the people don't swim in the pool, but everybody has to pay for it. And that will be the logic that they would use. So it's really just every condo is a little bit different. Every board's a little bit different. And those are kind of the conflicting views that they tend to have. And and neither one's right. They're just different opinions. So
I think that's exactly, I mean, it's a perfect answer. But what I would like to add is that the way the question was put, that's exactly the right way to take it. Asking that question, the board asking that question, that's exactly the right way, right? So not to think whether you are for or you are against. It's just to ask yourself if it's fair or not in the given situation. That and questioning that is what will drive you to the solution.
right, yeah, and we've had plenty of places that have kind of ended up in the middle where they've said, I had a board president in a condo that they didn't have a single person that had asked about an EV, but they were doing a major remodel and doing some things with their electrical. And he and the rest of the board thought, it'll be a great amenity to have this, and let's put 2 charging stations out in the parking lot, and let's do it now because this is a good time to do it because we're doing all this work. And it cost the association $15,000 to do that. And they're not trying to get that return on investment, because there's questions about that too, the return on investment. They looked at it more like that's an amenity, but anyone that uses it is going to have to pay for the usage moving forward. So that was kind of how they decided to do it. And again, there's a lot of different ways you can do this, and we've done, over 20 of these, and everyone's got a little bit different philosophy. So let's see what else we have here. Someone asked, with charging station technology changing fast, does it make sense to lease the charger rather than buying the charger? Pere?
That is a great question. It really is. So, two things. First, there is no sign that this is going to go back, right? And I try to be always very, very cautious, but there is really no sign. We don't see any sign that this is going to go back like it was in the 70s, right? That we switch and we stop doing electric, et cetera, et cetera. So first, when you look at all the market, that's not going to stop, right? So the second is the technology changes are being today only, I insist only, the big technological change is coming in the density of the battery. We haven't seen any change in all the rest since the very beginning. We have also seen a change in some new technologies that are going to provide the energy, are going to generate the energy on the spot, rather than going through the hassle of connecting to FPL or the utility company connecting to the grid. I have seen big investments being put into hydrogen cell fuels, into flywheels, to avoid going into the grid. But today is still very expensive, so it's not industrialized. But apart from that, the only change that is happening is that the batteries that today are giving us about 300 miles, 60, 90, 100 kilowatts, up to probably 350, 400 miles maximum, they are going to double with the same space in the car. And that's going to happen around 2030 with solid state technology, right? But the way those batteries are going to be filled is not changing. There is no modification in the way the electrons are being placed from one point to the other on level 2 or on level 3. So what I have seen in the market is that when people go for a lease, is not because they are afraid of technological changes, but because they want to have peace of mind in the warranty terms. We have clients that they have decided to go on the level 2 and level 3 with a 5 years warranty, right? Purchasing upfront purchase. But I have clients also that they said, no, I don't want to purchase upfront. I prefer to lease so that I don't need to buy additional warranty. That's the question. So what I would like you to think of leasing is an alternative way to have 5 years warranty or 6 years warranty, rather than being more secured in the technology. Because again, I'm not saying that technology change doesn't happen. I'm saying that nobody can see any change of that happening today, right?
Great. So I think we're a few minutes over, so I want to end here. There were a few unanswered questions, but one of the other things I think I'm going to ask Ashley to send out is I wrote an article for Florida Community Association Journal last year about EV charging, and it's got a lot of interesting facts in it, and I think it might answer some of the other questions that you guys brought up here. So I'll make sure that Ashley includes that in the email as well. And if you're looking to get started on this, hopefully your management company or manager has experience in it. They can give you some guidance on that. I know we've helped a lot of our condos through this with surveys and so on, and given them some advice on how to move forward. So thanks again, everybody, for coming today. And if you haven't filled out the poll, please do give us some feedback on how we did today. We greatly appreciate it, and do recognize we have 3 or 4 of these kind of webinars every month on different educational topics, whether it's how to run a good board meeting, how to be a great board member, insurance, legislation updates, reserve studies. We have one that has over 1,000 people sign up for it already later this week on reserve studies. So please go to campbellevents.org and sign up if you haven't, if you'd like to do that. So thank you. Thanks again, everybody. Pere, thank you so much for sharing all your wisdom here. This is great. And everybody have a great rest of the week. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Ashley.
Thanks for watching. For more great educational content, click the subscribe button now.